Welcome back to Learn with Mary. My name's Mary English and we're doing a little series of lessons on beginner palmistry. Now today we're going to launch into lines. Now the reason I didn't start with lines is because that's the one that, excuse me, I'm trying to shut the door here. That's the part of palmistry that is the most intriguing to everybody, and all they do is dive straight into lines, not having looked at anything else, and it's the same criminal activity that people interested in astrology do, is that they just talk about your sun sign and they never look at your chart shape. And I think before you even start talking about sun here, moon there, well, you need to look at the shape of someone's chart. The same thing, you need to look at the shape of someone's hand. So in the last few lessons we've done the thumb, which is obviously very important. We've done how to take a handprint, and yesterday we were doing the fingers, but now we're going to go into lines. And so I'm not going to do them all in one go because there's so many of them. Today I'm just going to do the heart line and the headline. Now, assuming you've taken a print, you have taken a print, haven't you? If you haven't got any printing equipment, you can do an emergency print, and I'll tell you how to do that. Is get some lipstick. Okay, we've all got lipstick knocking about the house. I don't think there's a single house that probably hasn't got any. And you just rub the lipstick over the hand, stick it on the paper, making sure that you press with the ball of your hand into the centre of the hand there, so that you get the lines that are all in that middle bit, which you're going to need. And then pull it off carefully. Okay, so the quicker you pull it off, the less likely you are to smudge it, and you'll have a decent print. Now I have got one in my collection that I took in the 1980s. I'm not even going to show it to you because I haven't got the permission of the person to show it to you, but the print is still as perfect as it was when I took it. And as I said when I was doing the lesson on taking a print, I absolutely recommend it. A, because it's interesting, but B, the whole idea of sitting and holding somebody's hand for any length of time while you're trying to work out what's what, and then, you know, peering into their hand and like not being sure about things, because the advantage of doing a print is everything is so much clearer. Okay, so you compare that, looking at that, okay, with looking at that, which one is going to be easier to make sense of? Now, heartline and headline. So on the little ones, because I've taught palmistry before, but not online, it's a long time ago. So this is the heartline and the headline. Now it's very, very different, almost with the pencil, it's very different with lots of people's hands. So this is the index finger here, and that is the heartline that goes around underneath all the fingers. Okay, so that's the normal, inverted commas, direction that the heartline goes. And then the headline is from here, again, under that, and that goes downwards like that. Okay, so now the actual direction that the line goes in, the heartline starts here, okay, underneath the little finger, and goes round and up, not the other way round. So that there is a direction that lines go in. I didn't invent this method. Okay, so there's the heartline, starts underneath the little finger, goes round and up, and then the headline, mine's a mess, this is the headline, comes round, this is my left hand by the way, comes round, breaks and doesn't break on the other side. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. But this is the heartline, headline. So I want you to find in your hand your heartline and your headline. Now there is a thing called a simian line where the heart and the headline are combined. Actually, my son's got one on one of his hands, and it's the sign of genius or dunce, so make your mind up what you'd like to be. But people that have got it a rather unique way of doing things, because now the heartline, which is the one that comes underneath, so many people at this and they can't work it out. Do the print, it's so much easier. Let me point it out on here so you can see it more clearly. Oomph. Let's just get this here. Ooh, everything goes clonk. Let's move that out of the way. I've got too much stuff on my counter. So this is the heartline. Okay, and then the headline starts there. Headline. Okay, right, got it? As you can see, my headline has got a massive great big break in the centre. Don't worry, I'm still here. So the heart line is the first line. It's underneath all of the fingers. It generally starts here. In fact, I've never seen it not start here. It starts here on the side of the hand and works its way up, and it's a little swoop towards the index finger. Now, the heart line represents literally the heart. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. If yours is knackered, you need to go get your heart checked out. And a knackered line looks like this, or like that. Okay. So that's if you've got a knackered heart line, like this, or like that. Or there's another type of, all lines, there's millions of different types like that, which is chained. So if you know anything crochet, it's a chain stitch, yeah. If your line is nice and clear, great, you've got a reasonably healthy heart, yeah. But this represents literally your heart and your emotions, because I don't care what anybody says, the two things are linked. So our heart, boom, 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 and how we feel are very, very linked. Now, so many men, can't tell you how many men have heart problems. Yeah, they're bums or go up, get knackered. Okay, generally because they don't want to retire, and it's not all down to eating too many chips or anything. It's the emotions get affected, and their heart goes and then goes clonk. So we need to keep in mind that this is the heart physically and also the emotions, and the two things are absolutely conjoined. So when you're looking at and trying to work out whether or not the person's heart line is healthy, if it goes up, sweeps in this direction, doesn't do anything weird, hasn't got any breaks in it, then they've got a reasonably healthy ticker. And if they've got a healthy ticker, then they'll have healthy emotions, and the two things are very linked. So they might have healthy emotions, therefore their heart is healthy, or it might be the other way around. They've got a healthy heart, so therefore they have healthy emotions. Now, if you get any of those things I've shown you, so lines that go squiggly, lines that look like a chain stitch, lines that go zun, 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 like that, any of those things, then you need to go get your heart sorted, go get checked out at the doc, and also while you're doing that, get your emotions checked. So go see a homeopath and a psychotherapist and a massage therapist. Go get some relaxation and sort out any of your heart issues. Yeah. Now, there's millions of different ways that your heart line can go. Generally speaking, it goes woof, and it goes up to this finger here. The longer that it is, like in my case, it goes, it almost, just do that so you can, so this is my left hand mind. Do it so it's not going to blur in the camera. There we go. As you can see, it goes up pretty near to my index finger. There is a line going across it. So it does mean I'm not going to live forever, but there we go. Anything that goes through a line slows it down. And the other thing, if you've been absolutely, what's the word now? If you haven't been very successful in relationships, look to see how many lines you've got coming down off your heart line. I can't tell you the amount of people I've seen that have got umpteen little diddly lines coming off the heart line, and they go, oh, you haven't been too successful in love. So that's a negative attitude towards relationships. What you want on a heart line, for positive, is to have lines coming up off it. Just little diddly ones, not masses, but you don't want too many coming down. Everyone that comes down off the heart line is a negative attitude towards relationships and love. Okay, so how much do you love yourself? Eternal question. You know, us as humans, we're not so good at it. Yeah. Any questions, stick them in the comment box. I will answer them at some point. And I had a couple of questions yesterday. So, oh yes, I've had a question, and it was about the club thumb. And the person, Rachel, I think it was, said that she'd read somewhere that it was called the murderer's thumb. It's not actually; it's called the club thumb. Old palmistry books like the one by Cara will tell you that loads of murderers have it. It's not necessarily about going around murdering people. It's about holding the emotions and the will in her, like really restricting your own will, and then boom, blasting it out to people. So keeping in mind that the tip of the thumb represents our will we, won't we, can we, do we, don't, that type of thing. The bigger that it is and the more larger is in a club thumb, then there's a lot of will that needs to be used in some positive way. Okay, I hope it clarifies that. The other thing I was asked on dominant hand, and I think it was under the middle finger, was a black mark for a brother. And if it's the dominant hand, then there's issues about responsibility and balance. So these things, so what is this person responsible for at the moment? So marks that are on the hand really aren't part of palmistry. Palmistry is more to do with the lines and the skin and the fingerprints and stuff. When we come on to things like, I've got a spot that's appeared here. I mean, we could be doing this forever, but just as a guidance, because the middle finger, it's not actually a middle finger because it's the middle digit, because there's 4 fingers, so therefore you cannot have a middle one because the middle is a gap. Middle digit. If you have got something that's growing under there, check with a doctor first. Okay, don't go to a palmist. Then it isn't something contagious or detrimental to health. But because it's the middle digit, and that's about balance and responsibility, then that person needs to be questioning and answering the question to themselves. What am I responsible for at the moment? Am I living up to my responsibilities? Yeah. Now, as I said yesterday, the left hand is the past, the right hand's the future. For a right-handed person, it's reversed. It's the other way around. So when we're looking at these handprints now, we need to be, or hands themselves, we need to be seeing the difference between the two hands. Now, as you'll see in my hand, when we come into the headline, mine's broken in my left hand, past, and it's not in my right. So now I don't know if you can, so I've got to get this so the camera cannot. There is a point where the camera will get so it isn't blurred, and I have to find that place. There. Okay, so in my right hand, my headline, which is the second one down, so it's this fella there, isn't broken. But I was fated to have an issue to do with my head. Well, it did actually, because when I was 18 I think it was, I had a motorbike, got hit by a car, bashed my head and had concussion, fell back off the motorbike, smacked my head. Luckily I was wearing a crash helmet on the pavement and a dislocated my shoulder. Anyway, now, so that's heartline. Okay, we clear on heartlines? Everybody clear? Let's go on to headline. So the headline is this fella here, starts there. That's where its starting point is, because the trouble is people will look at handprints and they'll think both of them go in the same direction. They don't. This is where the heartline starts here, because underneath, just above the heartline is the marriage line, which we're covering tomorrow. The headline comes across the hand like this. I don't know what I called it a minute ago, but this is the headline. It starts here, underneath the index finger, goes across the hand like that. And I say in my case, it's in my left hand knackered. So let me show you one where it isn't. So in this lovely print here, we've got, this is much clearer, this one. So we've got, this is the heart line, this is the headline. This is a rather short headline for this person actually. Short attention span. The longer your headline is, the more brains you've got. Okay, so if your headlines, sometimes I see them, if your headline comes all the way across your palm right to the other side, like you've got a brain the size of the universe, any extra little things that come off it, that's sort of further education, that type of stuff. I mean, it depends on lots of other things, but with this particular person, actually I've classified that as this. I don't know if you can read that. Nervous disposition, because this particular person, so we get to the camera, can you see all these extra lines going through everything? And there's the chained heart line, yeah. This is the headline here, forks at the end, terrible case of indecision, and all these tiddly little lines everywhere, and these lines here coming through the lifeline. Oh my lord, this was a person of very, very nervous disposition. I got that right. And they were born in February. Nervous disposition. It's just, it looks even worse. Let me show you again on the left hand. That is her left hand, yeah. I need to get it so. Come on, camera. Eventually it will. I can move my head out of the way. Come on. Oh, I'll have to scan it. It's not playing game. Yeah, I'll have to scan it, because until you you see it for yourself and how many lines this person has, or just the whole hand is just looks like a crisscross, looks like a shreddy. If your hand looks like a shreddy, you're a nervous bunny. Right, headline. Now, even though all the lines are important, the headline, to my mind, is probably the second most important line in the hand. But then I'm always saying that this line's the most important, that line's the most important. Let me give you another example here. So this is a bloke. Don't forget, there are men in the world. Yeah. So we've got heart line. Heart line's okay, but there's don't really like those things going through it. And the headline again is forked and it's not very long. So this is somebody with a rather short attention span. That's their left. But in their right, see how different this is now. So the headline has got much longer, and the heart line, there's a bit of a blob in there. I'd be talking about that blob. Somebody hurt this person at that point in time. But the headline is much, much longer. Now, the head represents the head physically and the thinking process, okay? So it's your mental processes are represented by the headline. So the longer it is, the longer your attention span is. If it's forked at the end, not if it's forked in the middle. If it's forked, it falls in the middle, which is what it does in my left hand. It's like brain injury, or not brain injury, but head injury, but mental disposition as well. If your right hand is different to your left on your headline, like in my case, if I was reading my hand, I had somebody that had exactly the same handicap. I go, oh, you had a bit of a problem, with your thinking or with your head physically when you was little. Is it all right now? And then we look at the right hand, we go, oh, yes, it is. You've recovered from whatever it was that went on when you were little. Okay, so keep that in mind. You need to compare hands. That's what I was saying yesterday. So the headline represents the head physically, this, and also the thinking process. So the longer it is, more brains you've got, more degrees you have, la 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 la. Very, very short headlines. Don't see them too often. There's a restriction in the mental capacities in some way. Now, having said that, I'll see if I can dig up pictures. I don't know if I've still got our handprints handy. I can't pause these things. I can pause audio, but I can't pause video. My younger sister had Down syndrome, and she had if you looked at her hands, you wouldn't know from her hands, other than her little finger was bent. So people with Down syndrome, their pinky finger is bent inwards. It's got a funny sort of curve. Now, somebody did ask about that and said they were born with it. That's different. People with Down syndrome are born with their little fingers are more bent because it's the finger of relationships. But my sister had that. But looking at her lines, her headline was pretty long. She, for a person with Down syndrome, was pretty bright. She could write, she wrote letters, she could read, she answered the telephone, she wrote letters every day. She wrote them at a rate of something like 12 letters a week to famous pop stars. Anybody that was on EastEnders, she'd write to them. So keep in mind that it's not about intelligence, okay? The headline is about the capacity of brain that you've got. Are you fulfilling it to your best potential? And what stresses are you under on a mental process? So you need to look head physically and also the thinking processes. So in my case, if I were the client, so, oh, you had some issues when you were little. Oh, you've resolved them now. So you need to compare the two hands. Now, if it's the other way around, oops, that you've got born with a perfectly clear headline and now you've got a gap in it, a break in it, a blurb in it, it's like, ooh, you need to be sorting out your mental processes. Okay. Have I got another one I can show you? I have. That's not very clear. This, oh yes. Okay, so this lady had the craziest of headlines, but I'm going to talk about it. So have I got the right hands here? Yes, so this lady was a pensioner in the 70s. I don't think she's alive now. I won't mention her name. But anyway, she will have passed. She has quite radically different hands. So here we go. Right. Now, Heartline has got a missing bit in it. Lots of forks towards the top. But look at that headline. Okay. It sweeps upwards and then it goes down like that. Now, this part of the hand here, and we come on to not the next lesson, the lesson after, or do the mounts. But her headline droops. Ooh, if I was looking at that, which I did at the time. Ooh, that's not good. Because the Mount of the Moon is the part of the hand that's the imagination. And if your headline droops down there, not only have you got a vivid imagination, but you can imagine yourself into a state of depression. You could be so imaginative that you end up with depression. Now, Cairo, the palmistry chap that I was telling you about, big chapter on the headline, especially if it droops. Oh, he did a whole book once about people that were in prison. I don't know if I've got the pictures in here. People that are in prison, people that were in mental homes. I don't know if we've still got those pictures in here. So I don't know. Some of these books have got coloured illustrations in it. I don't think it's this edition. No. Oh, and they were the scariest of things. And these were people with headlines that almost matched the path of the lifeline, which is near enough impossible. No, he hasn't got illustrations. There's only one at the beginning, which is this person here who's Lord Kitchener. Okay, so we can show you his hands there. So again, he's done it black and white. Oh, stop it with the blurry. But can you see that psychic cross? There we go. Look at that psychic cross there. So if you have that, I've got one, so you have got a cross in between your heart line and your headline, then you need to be doing work like this, so keep that in mind. But with the headline drooping, please sort it out. And what happens after people have treatment is their lines change. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, your left hand's the hand you're born with, never change, stays the same. This is where you're going to go in your life. So you read a baby's little left hand, you go, oh, likely to do this, this, and this. And then you can see whether or not they've manifested what was in there. Now, obviously, you don't want to manifest the negatives, so you need to make the positive changes, which I was talking about yesterday. Now, if you've got a droopy headline in both hands, go get some treatment for it, and you will see your headline either change direction. Trust me, lines can change. In your right hand, not your left. You can't change your past, but you can change your future. Your headline might change direction, might grow a line, an extra line that goes upwards a bit. The line that's drooping down might fade. All of these things can happen. They don't happen overnight. It takes months, but it can happen, which is why taking handprints is so important. And it's really funny because people think, oh, I'll take my handprints, I'll be like that for the rest of my life. I've got prints dating back to the year 1978. And I've read for people over the years, and they come back and I take another set of prints, and things have moved and changed. Now, not radically. So we haven't got a line that's going to go like that, but other things have grown, things have faded. There are other things which we haven't got time to go into. Because you've got fingerprints, and then you've got the I don't know what you call it, but the print in the palm, the palm itself. Behind the lines, underneath the lines, isn't just a flat surface. There's ridges in there as well, and those can alter direction and change. Your hand, your future hand, is I was going to say poetry in the making, but that's just a little bit too blurby. But it is your future as you would like it to be. Are you doing those things? Are you working towards what is possible for you? Because your hand's told you what's likely to. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have a head injury. But then you get to realise those things, work past them, and then you can actually manifest your destiny better than your hand says. So I don't know, say your hand says you're going to never marry, never have any children, live in a box for the rest of your life. It's like, whoa, I'm going to change that one. I'm going to get out of my box. I'm going to meet some people. I'm going to date. I'm going to find someone, and I'm going to get pregnant. I'm going to have babies. Or if you're a bloke, I'm going to find someone and she's going to get pregnant. We're going to have babies. Yeah. So nothing is in stone. Certainly your hands aren't. Yes, your fingerprints won't change, but your lines will. So be very, very careful when you're reading someone's hands. It's only a potential. It's not an actuality. Things can change. Now, I'll tell you a little story just before I go. So a friend of mine, I told her about palmistry and headlines and lifelines and all the rest of it when, I don't know, millions of years ago when we were working in CNA. And years later, she had a friend who gave birth to a boy, and he was told he had a terminal condition and that he wouldn't live. And she looked at his little baby hands, and she noticed that in his left hand, he had a very, very short lifeline. but in his right hand he didn't. And she said to the little boy's mummy, I don't think that's the case. I think he will live. Well, he's in his 20s now. In fact, he might even be in his 30s. He's in his 20s. He's late 20s. So it was absolutely, I'm not saying it was bollocks what the doctors said. It wasn't accurate for that particular child with that particular condition. And she doesn't know that much about palmistry. It's only what I told her about lifelines, which we're coming on to tomorrow. I never start with the lifeline. Always start with heart and the headline, because there's so much junk that people talk about lifelines. But anyway, coming to that tomorrow. But this little boy, nice long lifeline in his right hand, his dominant hand, his future was blessed. Okay, so you must compare both hands. What must you do? Compare both hands. Well done. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today. It's a little bit about palmistry. It's a bit of an introduction to it. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, UK astrologer. Leave your comments in the comments box. Do take some prints. If you want me to look at what's on your hand, you're going to have to take a decent photograph of it, because otherwise I ain't going to be able to see. So I hope you have a fab day. We'll be back again tomorrow.